I've said this before, but I've never thought I was a bad parent. There's times when I'm not my best self. There's days where, oh, I didn't handle that in a good way, but I've never, you have a bad moment, but that doesn't define, I've never thought I was a bad parent. And I think, and I wish that more people would feel that way.
Welcome to Women and Work, the show where we focus on our unique challenges, whether we're climbing the corporate ladder, growing our own business, or navigating the complex juggle of career and kids. I'm Diane Mocha, founder and CEO of the childcare app MomSub, like a substitute mom. Today we meet one of many women making work fit her life. The interview was done in the past, but the insights are just as relevant today.
We're talking about your mom journey. So that's what I do. You were a reporter. You are a reporter. I'm a reporter. We both.
For me, yes.
Well, you're a host, entertainer. You're like all of that. I'm more like a capital J journalist reporter. So when I spent 15 years at the CBS, I was the one at the fire and at the courthouse doing all that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I loved it and I missed it. That gig ended. You know how it goes with management and all that. And getting back into TV, forget about it. It's impossible. And so instead of hitting my head against the wall trying for something I never was going to get, I'm like, I'm going to do my own thing about something that matters. And at the time I was kind of going a little crazy, and I had this big talk with my friend, and I found out she had it all together, like you look, right? But I found out
it's all
guys. We're all falling apart, and we're beating ourselves up over it. And we really shouldn't be, because we're expecting ourselves to fit the image that we're putting out there when that's really not who we are. And so my idea is, if we let the guard down and we can still put on makeup, we don't have to, we can still put our best face forward, but we can kind of bear a little of our soul and tell some of those things that are a little hard to tell. And it will help so many other women who look at somebody like us and go, oh, I don't have it together like her. And you're like, honey, if you only knew. So I'm kind of giving a little of that. Here's what I'm doing. And so I don't know if you watched the one that I did about the woman on YouTube who told me her whole postpartum story. Uh-huh. And she pretty much kind of came out with, she's not going through it now. Sometimes it's a little easier to tell a story you've kind of experienced and you're after it. And so all I really do, I go out with my camera like man on the street, and I just start asking working moms, will you talk to me? And then sometimes they kind of like let it all out and say, right, here's what's going on with me, or here's what went on with me. Mm-hmm. So everyone has a story. I did a little looking around about you, but I don't need to know all of your background to know you've got a story. And so, it's all about this idea of balance, work-life balance, trying to juggle everything. How old are your kids? Tell me about your kids, their names, their ages, their genders.
Okay, so I have two girls, and one is 9 and one is 7.5. So they were born about 16 months apart, totally unplanned. And since the first one was born, obviously before kids, I worked full time. And then after my first was born, a job ended when I found out I was pregnant, and then I didn't get another job right away. And so then all of a sudden I found myself working part-time freelance situations with kids. So I'm lucky in that I mostly work from home right now. I sometimes work outside of the home depending on different jobs that come up, but I'm pretty much home and am a freelance writer, on-camera personality, influencer type. So that's, yeah. And both of my girls are in elementary school, so they're in school all day now.
How old are they?
9 and 7.5.
Okay. And so you have two girls. That's the plan. Not planning to have 6 kids or anything.
No. I'm good with 2. And I grew up with one sister. And so I always in my head pictured having 2 kids, just because that was the family dynamic that I was used to. And it's funny because a lot of my, my husband's brothers and their families, they all have 3 kids or 4 kids. And a lot of times there's a lot of big family. I'm Armenian. So there's a lot of Armenians that have like 3 or more children. And everyone says, oh, do you want more kids? And I'm like, no, I'm good with 2, because I can, do them, so to speak, manage them, handle family life with two. And even though I know if something accidental were to happen, I know that with three kids, you have more love in a family and whatnot. But I don't want three kids because I know that I would not be able to handle it in the same way. And I'm comfortable with my two kids, and I'm very, very happy.
And as part of that, because you know a career is important to you, and it would be that much. If you were just stay-at-home mom, three kids might seem more manageable than career.
No, not really, not really. And from the outside, that might look like it, and maybe that is a little part of it. But I'm not that. I mean, I love what I do. I enjoy what I do. I like to work. I continually want to work. You know, I enjoy earning a paycheck with my name on it, as opposed to always, you know, buying things that I know that, you know, my husband is making the money, so to speak. But the career is not really a part of it. It's more of a family dynamic, lifestyle, being sound in what you can handle on a personal level and a financial level when it comes to 2 to 3 kids. So that's a little bit more of where I'm coming from.
Okay, makes sense. So a lot of women face this pressure that they feel for all different kinds of things. Sometimes it's to have another child. Sometimes it's to quit their job, or, you know, not have a job where they travel, or whatever it is. And a lot of women have trouble saying no, or pushing back, or exerting their own beliefs about themselves, you know, and they either just say something to appease someone, oh, I'll think about that, but they know I'm not really going to, but then it weighs on them, or they somehow change something about themselves that they don't want to. So I want you to tell me how you have the fortitude to know to say, it might be right for all of you in your families, but not me. What insight can you share to other women about having that strength to do that?
Okay, well, something that my mom always told my sister and I growing up, and it really stuck with me, especially after I had kids, was guilt is a wasted emotion. And it really is. This sounds very inhuman, what I'm about to say, and I know that a lot of people are not going to believe this, and because every time I've talked about it, people will say, oh, you're lying, you're lying. I don't feel guilty about things. I don't. And I don't know if that's an egotistical, overly confident red flag, but I genuinely don't feel, if I don't have time for it, I say I can't. If I don't want to do something, I say that doesn't really fit. It's nothing to do with anyone else. It's about me. It's about my family. It's about my kids. It's about managing our lives. There's nothing to ever feel guilty about. And I mean, and I don't know, it's like there's so many examples where like people will say, oh, do you feel guilty about not, for instance, my husband's family, a lot, and this is something that I talk about in my book for first time pregnancy, by the way, that published 2 years ago. But the best thing that I think new moms can start training ourselves early on for, like starting with pregnancy, is saying no to things and really not letting anything weigh on your brain. If you're saying no to something that will make you healthier from the inside out, whether it's physically or mentally, it does not matter what anyone else is throwing at you in terms of, well, you really should, well, why aren't you, blah, 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 blah. And you really have to remain grounded and confident in yourself and what your priorities are. Because like an example, there's like a million examples, but like, for instance, at my kids' school, when they ask you to volunteer, there have been times, obviously, when I say, yes, I can do that in this calendar, this time it will fit. And I do it and it's fine and, no big deal. And then the next time, if someone asked me, and this really happened, they said, oh, can you volunteer for this event? I said, you know what, I really can't. And this one particular mom came because she knew that I did not work full time. And she came to me 3 times. I really want you involved in this. You really need to go. And each time I said, I need to be very clear. This timing is not right for me right now. Please come back to me later. And you have to really draw a hard line. And you're not hurting anyone's feelings if you're protecting yourself.
Well, even if you are hurting someone's feelings, oh well, you're doing it as tactfully as you can. You can't protect the rest of the world. You have to protect yourself and your family first.
Oh, you do.
Yeah. So what about those instances when you want to be in two places at once. So it's easier to say no to something that in your heart you know you don't want to do because this other thing's more important. But you get some amazing offer to go on some trip somewhere. You're going to New York. They're putting you on the morning show. This is super important. It's for a new book you're launching, and your daughter made it in the talent show, and you have to be there. It's either take that or leave that, and you're going to miss her talent show performance. So do you feel guilty then?
I think the word is, I don't consider that guilt, because I think, when you get down to brass tacks and having to make tough decisions like that, it's an ongoing conversation. And it's a lot. I mean, I'll admit, like, I have it a lot easier where I am not in a full-time position that, I am required to be places all the time in order to get paid. Like, my travel conflicts and work conflicts are very few and far between, because I am home most of the time and I can go to most stuff. And I am, like, I'm very appreciative and I feel lucky in that regard. But it's also a conversation. And I have been that it's a conversation that happens. But you have to have, like with your kids, obviously, it's a conversation saying, listen, I'm required to do this. I have to back out. And it just happened to me. A few weeks ago, I was hired to do a series of videos for, a brand that I was working with. And I was signed up to chaperone my daughter's field trip. And every school year, I always volunteer to chaperone one field trip for each daughter throughout the year. So this was the one field trip, and she was all excited, and, oh, you're going to come with us, blah, 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 the whole thing. And I was excited too. And then I get this job, and frankly, it was a very well-paying job. And I told her, and they changed the schedule on me, and they said, oh, instead of the afternoon, we now need you in the morning, and it conflicted with the field trip. So I talked to my daughter, the 9-year-old. I said, here's the situation. I go, I need to talk to you. Here's what happened. And obviously she was disappointed. And I told her, I said, I'm really disappointed too. This sucks. I said, I was really, you know how much I love to go with you. I said, but this particular job, and I explained to her, I said, you know how you get to do X, Y, and Z? I go, we have you in dance lessons. You get to perform at Disneyland. I go, do you know why you get to perform at Disneyland? Because I am able to pay for it because of these jobs that I get few and far between. And when certain jobs come around, in order for you to keep doing some of these things, I need to say yes. I said, can we cope with me missing this field trip? And she's like, I don't like it. I go, we can cope with it. I go, I want to be, and it was a heart to heart. And it was like, I would say we had like 3 mini conversations over the course of a day and a half leading up to it, and she was okay with it. You kind of have to you have to say, I'm mad too. This sucks. But you have to figure out a way to age appropriately talk about these things, because it's wonderful for us parents to be there for everything, but that's also not reality. If every few and far between, if I can't make one performance, in a series of 6 months to a year, it's okay. If I can't get to that field trip, but I am at every other school related thing, it's okay. And so I think it builds resilience both for kids and for us parents to really live in reality with our families. Like, no one person can get to every single thing all the time, and it's okay. We still love each other. We're still there for each other. We still support each other.
And we can be disappointed without feeling guilty.
It's okay. Yes, it's okay. And then the day came and went. How was your field trip? Oh my gosh, it was so great. Oh, I wish I could be there. I know, I wish you could be there. That's okay. I emailed the teacher and said to put me on another field trip. And then it was done.
Yes, nice. So let me ask you about your whole career, because certainly you had a career before kids came along. And it sounds like if you didn't work, you and your family would be fine financially. You might not get a few extras, but you don't have to work.
Right.
So when kids came along, and they weren't even necessarily expected at that time.
Yeah.
Did you consider the stay-at-home mom thing? Did you try it? Did you always know, I really like my career, I want to go back to it? Did you have in your mind, I'm going to do this part-time thing to make it work? Was it that you fell into it, or how did you plan it out so it would be like the ideal schedule you want?
I pretty much jumped into doing something. I started my blog when like the 9th month of my pregnancy, because my first pregnancy, because I just needed something to maintain my creativity and I wanted a distraction. And I did want to keep a foot in media because performing had always been a part of my life. And I knew that, I mean, I was, oh my gosh, how old was I when I had my first baby? I think I was like 32 or 31, 32 or 31. I can't remember. But at that point, I knew the components in life that made me happy and content. And working was one of them. So I started my blog just to stay creative and to stay satisfied, having an outlet, feeling like I was still sort of, having a foot in media. Blogs were just starting to get popular. It was very, very new. There was no Instagram. Facebook was several years old, and that was it. But I always knew that I did not want to work full time with kids. And in fact, I told my husband that before we had even gotten engaged or, anything. I said, well, just so you know, I don't have any intention of working full time when I have kids. And he was like, well, what are you talking about? Like, he thought it was really, really antiquated. And I said, no, if my personal choice, I want to be able to stay home and pick my kids up from school. And, everyone, the magic of this modern era is that everyone has a choice. And my choices seem to skew a little bit old fashioned. And a lot of times I have been accused of, oh, well, you curbed your career. I wrote a piece one time saying, I'd rather have a mediocre career than have a nanny raise my kids. And it got a lot of heat. And, it had a real they slapped a real buzzy title on it to like get people infuriated. But essentially that is how I really feel. I don't feel comfortable if I, am not home a certain amount of hours during the day to pick up my kids, to take them, to, bring them home and say, okay, let's find out what happened at school today, to sit down and eat with them, to say, no, you're not no one gets an iPad after school. You're going to go outside and play. Like, I want to be the one that's with them during these young years. So I just sort of fell into it. I blogged. I would get, one-off jobs here and there, on camera, hosting shows or, doing like correspondent work. And it just sort of evolved. It evolved into, me doing family lifestyle content. And I just sort of went with it. Like, I didn't have like a grand plan. I just literally, I still don't have a grand plan. I just take things as they come. And I think, oh, maybe I should try doing this, or maybe I should try doing this. So it's just sort of haphazard, but so far it's fine.
And what you did is similar, not the same, but similar to what I did, and we weren't as financially stable, but I still said, I'll figure out how to make it work from home, even if I have to do a side hustle from home, because like you said, I wanted to do the pickups and the drop-offs. I wanted to be there after school. And for me, now that mine are teenagers, I look back and I'm so grateful. And they even say, like, I don't even remember, I make references. Oh, remember when we used to make those fairy houses and play those games? Yeah. And I'm like, no, I didn't do it for them. Although I felt like it would be beneficial for them. Yeah. I did it for me, because if I was doing it for them and they turned out to be brats, and teenagers are tough. So they go through some phases like that.
Yes.
Then you're like, oh my God, I wasted. I'd be resentful. But I'm like, no, I did it for me. I knew the kind of mom I wanted to be. I wanted those experiences. I look back on all those hours of playing Candyland, and I actually liked it. I mean, that's crazy. People are like, but because I had that other thing, I didn't have to do that 24/7.
Yes. It's because you have, and that's where I think that the balance, so to speak, comes from, is because you have your foot in both. It's funny though, because it's saying like, yeah, you do it for you, because if you're living this chapter, I want those experiences as part of my life's journey, so to speak. But the other thing that I like to sort of, and my kids are still younger, so I haven't seen an end result with teenagers and whatever, but I have this, I'll call it an imaginative theory, that even though they don't remember, because I'll ask my kids too, I was like, oh, I remember I used to take you guys to the zoo. And they're like, no. And I go, yeah, because you were like 3. But all of those things those experiences, the fact that we were there, they add up collaterally.
Yes.
Subconsciously, it's adding up for them. And I'm a big believer in that. And I've read so many articles and, interviewed so many of, licensed family therapists that, I've said, does it make a difference? And they do. They look at me, they go, yes. First, children always need a loving, caring adult. That is the base. But if it is the mother, and, the dad too, but frankly, if it's the mother, it's a much greater collateral value.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can see that. And so in the course of doing these things, that there's going to be some sacrifices, some things, that you can't do the way you want to do them because balancing this stuff, even when you told me the story before. So I want to ask you, think of all those things we just talked about, like, okay, keeping your house up, like, keeping your house the way you want it, making meals as opposed to like grabbing food, even keeping yourself together, working out, all those. Which of those things are you like, I draw a hard line on this, I have to do it this way? And which of them have you learned to let go? And I'll have people over even when my house is a toy explosion. Like, share a little, get a little truthful here, and tell some of the things that maybe aren't the pretty side that you've realized I just can't do it all.
Right. Okay. So my biggest tip for all of this stuff is everyone needs to stop expecting everything to do in detail. And I'm trying to think of an example. Here, I am a big believer in keeping things tidy. Okay. On the outside, they're everything for my own mental clarity throughout the day. I can't have things thrown everywhere because it messes me up on the inside. However, if you open my kitchen drawers, things are not organized. The forks, what I mean? You have your things, you put things away, but it's not like this Pinterest level, the pantry. Okay, how you see the pictures of people on Instagram with the pantry and, they came and organized my pantry. What are you talking about? Put the damn food in the pantry, shut the door, it's tidy, it's fine. From the outside, if things are relatively in order, I'm good. There's in my kitchen is not large, and so I like to have it clean. I don't like dishes in the sink. I've gotten myself in this habit where, everything goes in the dishwasher until it's time to run. That's my one thing where I like to keep the sink relatively clean. But then across on the counter, I have one counter that's about, I don't know, this big, and I have my paper stacked.
Oh, no.
Because that's, you know what I mean? It's the messes are there, the things all those things you need to deal with. Oh, I got to look at that bill. I got to pay this. I got to respond to the field trip permissions. All those things, instead of spreading them out, I have a designated place. This is the mess. The mess is going to happen right here. So that way it doesn't invade the rest of my life. And I'm also a big believer in brainwashing kids. And I did this with mine, brainwashing kids to pick up all of their stuff. And my kids have gotten pretty good at it now. And, because when they were toddlers, I would stand and say, we're not going anywhere until we pick up. And they'd scream and protest and think. And it would be much easier for me to pick up their shoes, but I didn't. We're not getting in the car to go to school until you come and get this pile of shoes and socks and put it in your room. And I'd stand there and wait. I go, we're not going, we'll be late. And I hate to say I train them, but now when it comes to picking up, they do pick up their shoes. And I will leave the shoes in the den. I'm looking at the spot where this happened last night. I will leave the shoes and the dirty socks that they took off after school yesterday, and I will leave it where they put it in the den. And every hour I would say, can you get your shoes out of the thing? It would be so much easier for me to pick them up, but I refuse because they need to learn how to pick up their stuff because I can't do it all. Mm-hmm. And they help. They do.
And what about self-care? Which things do you make sure that you take care of, and which things have you sort of let go? Is there something that's gotten lost that was a part of your life before you became a working mom?
Yes. Like the exercise. I just started exercising again, like 2 to 3 days a week, and it's only because my kids are now in school full time, and I figured out, okay, I can go on Monday and Thursday mornings, and that's when I can go, and I just do it then. But I really didn't. I mean, especially when they were little, before everyone is in school, it is hard, and I didn't exercise, and I really started committing to making myself move, particularly the last 2 years, for emotional and mental reasons, because I found it's the best way to just get all of the negative stuff out.
Mhm. I was just going to say, were you starting to feel bad about yourself? Whether or not you were noticing, like, did you notice any change? Like, oh, maybe you're not even putting on weight, but oh my, this doesn't fit the way it used to. Or were you just starting to feel like a slug? And, how did you, sometimes those feelings feed on themselves, and it's very hard to pull. It's like a hole. You dig yourself deeper.
Yes. And you have to pull yourself out. I didn't feel, no, I haven't felt bad about myself in that regard. It was more so, it was it was through a time of grief where I was having a very, very hard time. My mother passed away 2 years ago. And so I was having a very difficult emotional time coping. And I was, every single stage of grief you want to name, like anger, depression, anxiety, everything, like it was all coming. And last year was when I was having a very, very hard time. And I said, I've got to fix this, because I am snapping at my kids more. I'm snapping at my husband more. And it's all coming from sadness, and it's coming from, a real thing that people go through. And that's when I said, okay, and exercise, I found that if I went 2 days a week, it kept me healthy on the inside. And that was the part, because I was starting to feel bad about how sad I was feeling, and how my sadness was starting to spill over and create an unhealthy atmosphere for everybody. And I saw that pretty quickly. So I said, I got to fix it, because the only one that can fix it is me, or help it. I don't want to say fix it. It's not something you fix, but it's something that you help and nurture, and committed to for the long-term good.
So let me ask you, did you have to try a bunch of things in order to manage that grief and sort of make it not impact other parts of your life before you hit on the one? Because someone might hear that story and go, well, that's great for you, that doesn't work for me. I tried that and it didn't work. Like, did you try a therapist? Did you try, you probably read books. You're probably like me, where when you're going something, you're seeking out articles and stuff about it. And what did you have to go through before you figured out that was the right one for you? Did you try professional help?
Yeah, reading articles definitely helped me. There was a fabulous book that I read called Anxiety is the Missing Stage of Grief, which really helped me. It filled in a lot of blanks in terms of what is going on with me, why, and so that helped. I did talk to a grief counselor 2 times. It honestly, that wasn't the thing. It didn't help me. And I know that 2 times is not a lot, but I know you're supposed to like give it like a lengthy amount of time. But it was ineffective for me. Mm-hmm. And what I found was that I really just needed, it was a physical thing. And there was one article that I read about how there was an article I read about how if you do physical things to physically get it out of your body, it's beneficial for your brain. And I, like, growing up, I was a dancer, performer. And so like the physical movement, like that was something where I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I have to get this. It was a physical thing. Like I have to get this out of my body. And so there were things. So I started, I would dabble around my yard and like plant flowers and do things like that. And then there was one article that suggested putting like a glass in a baggie and like throwing it against the wall so you could hear it break. Like physical things, you know what I mean? Because like, hundreds of years ago, people would do manual labor that got that angst and stress and anxiety out of your body. And so I started doing physical things, and it was just, the exercise really helped. It really did. It was the magic thing for me.
Did you have your kids and husband responding in ways that got you defensive? Like, I went through this real bad period where we were having financial issues. So I started the side business. It was only supposed to be on the side, but it like took over my life, which was good. It helped us in the long run, but in the short run, I was trying to still do everything else I was doing, and I was snapping at them. And they used to kind of say, "You yell all the time. You yell all the time.
All
You're
the
a bad
time."
mom." Yeah. And even years later, they still say that, and I'm like, I may yell occasionally. I'm Italian. I yell occasionally.
I yell too. I know.
But I don't yell like I was then. But they still have it in their mind. You're the mom that yells all the time, because I went through those couple years of kind of being the crazy yelling all the time mom. So did you get some pushback from them, and did you get defensive about it? Did that, make it harder to get past it?
Totally. No, 2018, I was yelling all through, literally 2018, I was yelling. There's a piece on my blog too that I forget what I titled it, but it was something to the effect of how 2018 broke me, or like 28 the year. Oh, it was called 2018, the year everything broke. So I all through 2018 I was yelling, and my husband was like, "Okay, you need to stop and this and this and this," and he didn't understand what all the intricacies of what I was going through, and
you may not have really understood the whole
I didn't, and I'm still figuring it out. It's like a process like that you like carry along with you, but I and I knew that he was being truthful, but sometimes he would get it was, like I said, it was creating a very difficult daily life because I was just I was wound up, and it was all from sadness and anger and all those things. And every time, the thing is, it's one thing, and I don't know if you feel the same way. If a spouse is telling you things, it's like, oh, it's a spouse. It's you go to a place of like, they need to stop, all that stuff. But then when your kids do it, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Then it takes like a deeper level. So whenever my kids, why are you yelling at us? I would say, okay, I go, you know what? I am yelling, and I was flat out so transparent with them. And, they were like, it was a year ago, so they were a year younger than they are now. And I said, the reason, it's not okay that I'm yelling over this. I go, this is not something I should be yelling about, but I am yelling over this. And I go, do you know why mommy is yelling over this? Because I am very, very sad right now, and I miss grandma so much. And this is why I am yelling. And I said, I am sorry that I'm yelling. I said, I'm trying to get my brain to figure out how to not yell, but it's because I'm super sad. And they would go, oh, we don't want you to be sad, and then it turns into but being transparent with them in an age appropriate way helped everyone cope with it,
Mm-hmm. That's funny what you say about kids versus spouse, because I interviewed a woman who said, someone could insult me about a lot of different things, and it might hurt my feelings a little, like, you're not a good worker, you're a bad wife for, not going, with your husband on the weekend to do this project or whatever. And she's like, but eventually that'll just sort of roll off me. But if someone accuses any woman of being a bad mom, you're not, that gets to you. It gets to you. It's like, wait a minute, especially when you feel like I'm doing everything I can to prioritize that over everything else, including myself, even though I know I shouldn't. Don't you dare call me. But sometimes we put ourselves out there. I just wrote an article for Fast Company, one of the larger places that I've written for. And I knew I would get some pushback, but all the pushback I got was, you're a bad parent. Don't blame the vape companies, blame yourself. And I had an explanation for everything. And okay, maybe I could have done this or this better, but I know all these things you're telling me to do, I did those things.
Yeah.
But you can only do so much, and you have to know when someone calls you a bad mom, you have to have that confidence to know, I'm doing everything I can, I'm doing it the way I believe is right. I can't be perfect. I'm not going to be a perfect mom.
Yeah.
But so I feel like all these years later, my kids are teens, I still struggle with that. Do you feel that that's kind of in the background too?
I I don't.
Okay, good for you. Good for you.
I don't. I tell you, like, I'm not making it up. I'm not. I really. I mean, this is people, and like I said, I've said this before, but I've never thought I was a bad parent. There's times when I'm not my best self. There's days where, oh, I didn't handle that in a good way, but I've never. You have a bad moment, but that doesn't define. I've never thought I was a bad parent, and I think, and I wish that more people would feel that way. And I know that it's hard in this era of comparison with everything we look at online and all of this stuff, but I really don't. I've always, I don't know, I see right through it. I'll see people's posts and I'll be like, okay, great, that's wonderful, but like, everyone's a person, like, just that, you know what I mean? It just, I don't know. You can't, I like to live in a bubble when it comes to comparing myself to others. And I was never like that before kids, but after kids, something, I don't know, something clicked in like internal confidence where I'm like, no, I'm driving this ship and this is life. And there's, spikes and valleys, and you just, you go with it, and that's it.
That must be the reason that you are having such success on these platforms like Instagram, because you hear about these moms out there that are projecting that perfect life, and then they're living like the like, like we spent all day at the beach with the kids and they have all these happy photos, and then you find out later, after they break down and quit their blog, that those were the only 3 minutes of the day that were happy. The whole rest of the time our family was fighting. And it's like, that's so heartbreaking to hear. And then I start to think, are all the Instagram moms like that?
Maybe.
No, but not you. I mean, you're not taking the perfect picture of the family, posting it, and then the whole rest of the day everybody's in conflict.
Well, no, that's not us. And half the time, like with Instagram, I mean, I've been pretty clear about it. I hope I've been clear, but like my Instagram is to market me as a writer, host, reporter, and the family lifestyle thing is something I'm very passionate about through experience and research and all, everything that I talk about. But I, like, a lot of time, I have a very hard time. If you go through my Instagram, you will see certain pictures that I've taken, like, with my kids. It's like I posted a Halloween picture of my kids, like, sitting on the doorstep, and, but I post very few things, like, when I take my kids somewhere, because I don't want to take a damn picture. And that's the truth. I mean, like, literally the last time we went to Disneyland, I don't know, maybe several months ago, we went to Disneyland and I took a couple pictures. And I did take a picture of us, but I went back and I looked at my phone and I go, I didn't even take any pictures of us at Disneyland because I just wanted to be there with them. And I don't know, I guess, the whole getting the shot, like, you take your family somewhere and you're doing something and you get the shot, and like, my kids don't want to take a picture. And the reason why we do take pictures is that because I tell them, okay, listen, I was hired by this company, and I tell them this. I go, you guys, I have a job for you. I go, you're going to be earning I said, I was hired by this company to talk about how we enjoy doing this. I would like us all to take a picture and you'll be on my Instagram, and it's part of our family business, so to speak, so that we can pay for dance lessons this month. And they're like, okay, I'll do it. But a couple, like, now it's like I want to look at my Instagram and explain every picture, because I really don't do a lot. It seems like I'm always on Instagram, but I'm not. I post maybe like twice a week, 3 times a week, to keep the algorithm going, because I will be hired by companies and I need to deliver certain reach, just as you deliver, advertisers for television. That's how Instagram works.
So it's a part of your life you've compartmentalized.
Yeah.
It's not running your life like some people, say happens to them. And it's understandable why those people would end up quitting and breaking down. And it's good that they've sort of come forward and said, I can't live that way. You can't let anything else run your life. It's your life.
Yeah, it's true. You can't. And it affects your kids' perception of what's real and what's not real.
Yeah.
I don't even like the idea of like some of these kids, they're constantly being touted around and taken pictures of. And these kids, think about this for a second. These kids a lot of kids are getting used to constantly getting their picture taken, constantly being showcased on mom or dad's social media, constantly me, ego, 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 look at me, look at me, look at me. That's not healthy.
Yeah. Right. And being judged by those external, superficial type things.
Yeah.
So you're in California. You're in Southern California, right?
Southern California. Yep.
Okay. My husband asked, is she near Glendale? I went to school there.
I am near Glendale. Yes, I am.
My husband and I met out there. I was there years ago before I had kids as an entertainment reporter. But I grew up in the Midwest. I wanted to come back here. So I so appreciate, this is a lot of time, and I so appreciate you sharing your story, the ups and downs. You really have it together. Do you have any projects coming up that you want to promote? Do you have anything right now that you're dealing with? If you were out talking to moms, anything that you think I should ask them, or what are the issues you're talking about right now in your circle of girlfriends?
Okay, so the big hot topic issue is always the screen time thing.
Screen time.
I'm sort of like very authoritarian when it comes to screen time and kids. A lot of my really close, longtime personal friends think I'm a psycho because I don't let neither of my kids have their own devices at all. They don't have their own tablets. Obviously, like I let them watch shows on, they can watch shows on our, family TV here in the living room area so that I can see it. They don't go on YouTube unless I'm like with them and we're looking at something together. We don't do recreational screen time on tablets during the week or anything like that. Weekends, they have to ask to borrow my husband's iPad so that they can they like to record movies with their dolls. So they like to record, make these plays with their dolls. It's actually pretty funny. So they're allowed to do that, but I really don't, I'm not, and occasionally they have homework on, on the computer where they use my laptop, but I'm a really big believer in really limiting the recreational screen time. And I don't think any kids should be on any kind of app. Even if it's YouTube and if they're watching Peppa Pig, they can watch Peppa Pig on the TV. I'm not a believer in letting kids have their tablet if they're at the restaurant with mom and dad. No, you can sit here, you can count the dots on the ceiling, you can talk to us, you can, color, you can sit there and pout, but you're not going to be on the tablet. So that's something that's a super hot topic for me. But it's proven to be beneficial for our family, and it's created less stress, and it's made everything a lot more agreeable and happy in our home.
You don't feel like it's causing conflict every day because they're constantly trying to get you to whittle you down? No.
They're not.
But in the beginning, it must have been tough when you had to really draw the line.
Not really, because I started when they were toddlers.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of started before they were even conscious to know what's going on. I never gave them my phone to watch when we were out. I was the crazy lady that would take two toddlers, a 2 and a 3-year-old, to Cheesecake Factory at lunchtime, and they'd sit there in their high chairs, and I would sit and talk to them, and people were looking. I mean, they could barely talk back, or we would draw. I've never, ever, ever given them any kind of device in a public place, ever. I think maybe one time because my husband was with me and he handed it over, and I was like, what the F are you doing? What are you doing? And we got into a thing, but I never have. And so they never, and as they've gotten older, even if it's watching television or, doing whatever, I will set the timer. I'm like, okay, even on the weekends, if they're, oh, can we please use the iPad to make our doll movies and this and that? I'm going to set the timer for 45 minutes. When this bell rings, it's gone. And even if they would push back, please, I'm like, no, it's gone. And I physically take it away. And so they've learned now I realize they're kind of starting to regulate themselves where when they do watch TV or if they do, use the iPad or whatever, they say, okay, I think it's time to put this away now. I'm like, yeah, it is time to put it away. So and I tell them, I go, my phrase is, too much screen time with I would tell them too much of the wrong kind of screen time will turn your brain black and crumbly, and I am your mother and I'm not going to let you turn stupid. And they're like, what? So I literally like brainwashed them into knowing that too much screen time is not good. And the research now is coming out, and it's just, I mean, it's backing up every crazy idea I've had about like their brains developing at, at a delayed rate when they're younger if they have too much screen time. So I'm a big hard ass when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Well, good for you. And it may get a little tougher as they get older and they want their phones.
I know that's true. And I know it's coming, and I know it's going to be really hard because I don't have teenagers yet, so it's going to be hard. But
usually at the end of every interview, I get a hug, but you're far away.
Oh my gosh.
Great to meet you. Someday when I'm out there, or if you ever come through the Midwest, we'll meet in person, go to Cheesecake Factory or something.
That would be great.
I really appreciate your time. You look fabulous. You are the Fab Mom.
You know what FAB stands for? You know what FAB stands for?
I looked it up, but I don't remember.
Okay, so so FAB stands for focused after babies. And that was the whole thing about when I first started blogging. I said, okay, I have these babies, but I need to stay focused, to be organized, to manage life so that things don't completely crumble and I don't completely lose myself. So FAB is focused after babies.
Ah, I like that. And you're still focused. Good for you.
A little bit.
If you found this conversation helpful, inspiring, or refreshing for uncovering the messy parts of life, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, share it with a friend. And if you want to invest in a solution to the childcare crisis, you can reach out to me about the MomSub Equity crowdfunding campaign at diane@momsub.com, or connect with MomSub on LinkedIn or other social media platforms. Remember, this is your space for candid conversations, expert insights, and real stories from women who have been there. Keep pushing boundaries and spreading your love and encouragement to other women who need it.